Welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Alicia Watley.
I'm Mike Brode.
I'm Tim Havler.
And I'm Rosen and Tankin, Building Code Specialist at PLRB.
Rosen, yay, look at that. A new person
Welcome,
here.
Rosen. Is this your first?
This is my first time.
All right.
How sweet.
All right. We're not going to take it easy on you. Are you ready?
Right.
No, we're not.
You shouldn't.
All right. So, Rosen, I get to ask you this question. What is the scenario?
Ooh.
The scenario is Hurricane Helene wreaked havoc across 6 states, devastating over 200,000 homes. The insured's home in Macon, Georgia was in the path of Hurricane Helene, but was lucky to escape with minimal damage. Due to extensive wind damage, the roof will need to be replaced. Upon removal of the asphalt shingles, the roofing contractor finds that the existing roof deck has gaps. Now the contractor is requesting removal of the existing spaced sheathing and installation of new half-inch OSB. But what does the code require?
Ooh, good question.
Right. To all you homeowners out there, because, I try not to own anything because I don't want to be responsible for anything. Who's had to climb up on the roof? And if I had to guess, there's at least one person who has.
Oh, I did 2 weeks ago, but I
Wait,
just like to
all of
keep
you?
my gutters clean, and it was fall, and I got big trees.
Okay. So
Get gutter guards, Tim. Jeez, oh Pete. Don't you say the commercials shouldn't be climbing on those dangerous ladders.
yeah, who do you guys think you are?
And Alicia, back in the day, I used to be an adjuster. We didn't have those newfangled, what you call them, magical flying machines and drones measuring everything from outer space. I had to get up there and measure things myself. And I can recall, because this scenario kind of brought out a bad, kind of scary memory, but you guys will enjoy because it'll be kind of fun. I had a roof that was on a commercial structure that was like an old home that was converted into a business. So it had multiple like roofing layers. And the insured had set up, he had like 3 or 4 6-foot step ladders to go from each different section of the roof. And it was about this time of year. So it was icy and scary. And there's your brave, intrepid Mike Brode out there climbing up these sketchy step ladders to try to get onto different portions of the roof and not slip and go flying off the thing and killing myself. But since I'm here today with you, obviously, I was not, I didn't get killed, but I was very, very concerned about it.
Wait, you were a brave boy. Good for
I
you.
figured, yeah, the insured was there. He had set up the ladders. I better do it. I'm going to get fired. So there was no bravery there. There was just, I wanted to keep the job.
That's back when you were young and agile.
Yes, Tim, that's true. Back in the days, yes. It was quite the adventure.
Rosen, did I see you raise your hand? You've been up on a roof?
Yes, actually, the first time was when I was 8 years old. I found a way to climb up onto the roof of our house, and basically scared the crap out of my mom because she didn't know where I was. She looked up 2 stories up, and I was standing there waving at her. And she freaked out.
Your dad's like, clean the gutters while you're up there, Rosen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a riddle for you guys.
Ooh.
I'm currently staying in a short-term place, and the building is a fully enclosed structure, but it has no roof. How is that possible?
Say that again.
There's no roof, but it's fully enclosed.
Yeah, you got me. Is there a tarp?
No.
No.
It's upside down.
Well, I guess it goes into what's considered a roof.
Exactly.
Tim, you're the
Yay!
Tim's the attorney of this group, so Tim.
Is a tarp a roof? We answer that question all the time, but I doubt there's a tarp over Rosen's place. I don't know. Is it like the walls go straight up?
It's a dome.
Oh, a dome.
Yeah.
Domes have roofs. Don't
Right.
technically a roof.
Do they?
Yeah, yeah. I don't
Well,
know.
look up. There's
Where
something there.
where does
If it's
the
covering your
wall
head, it's a
end?
roof.
Yeah, it's a
Where
good
does the
point.
wall end and when does the roof begin?
45
Right
degrees.
there,
There, where the crease is.
where my
Okay.
ladder could reach. Yeah, interesting. Well, thanks, Rose. I don't think we've ever had a riddle before.
We've had tests. Boo.
Yeah, no riddle.
Yeah.
Someone submitted a test on the podcast. Wow. Okay. I'll think of
No,
that next time.
Tim usually gives us tests, and then we have to fight over who gets it right, who gets it
Right.
wrong.
Alicia
He
doesn't
calls
like
them
the
trivia
trivia.
questions, but
Right.
yeah, they're not trivia. They're
Well, trivia is different from a test. Trivia
right.
is stuff I already know. A test is stuff I don't know or might know. I don't know. All right, so we've been talking about roofs. We've been talking about domes. Going back to the scenario, what is spaced decking, and why is this an important issue?
Yeah.
Um, okay. So if you imagine a roof, two slopes, the deck is the layer of paneling that goes on top and which holds the roof covering, basically. Usually it's a piece of plywood or a panel. In some cases, it can be boards, and spaced decking is when it's a skip between each panel going up. So they refer to it as skip sheathing. Usually it's 1x6 boards or 1x4 boards, and they skip the space as they go up. Um, this type of sheathing is most common with roof coverings made out of wood, so like cedar, shake, wood shingles, that sort of thing. And the reason why they use that is because the space underneath allows for ventilation, which is needed for the shingles so that they don't cure improperly, which causes them to bend. The problem is that space sheathing is not compatible with asphalt shingles. And what happens is if you try to install asphalt shingles on space sheathing, it's not level and it could affect the way the asphalt shingles seal. So the code expressly requires solid sheathing in order to install asphalt shingles. This is covered in section R905.2.1, which basically says you need to have solid sheathing. So solid sheathing is basically where the wood is uninterrupted and there's no gaps in between.
Did you make up all those letters and numbers, Rosen? Where did that?
No, I just read them every single day and write them every single day for our members, and they're
See,
basically always the same numbers. So
that's almost like trivia. You just know it.
they're
Right.
imprinted in my head.
So that applies only to asphalt shingles. Rosen, would you still have that kind of skip sheathing if you did the old style cedar?
You could,
Finish roof?
yes. And in some cases it's recommended to have skip sheathing. What happens sometimes is that a home with like cedar shake on it, the homeowner will decide to recover it and then they'll install asphalt shingles on top.
Okay.
And when it comes time to replace the roof, the new homeowner's thinking, okay, I have an asphalt shingle roof, but he doesn't realize there's layers underneath it. And they strip off all the layers and there's space sheathing underneath. So in that situation, you can't install new asphalt shingles because you have to kind of replace um, a new substrate over the space sheathing in order to make it solid.
Okay.
So if you're trying to install asphalt shingles, it sounds like no spaced sheathing. So what happens when the house has shingles and the space sheathing is already on it? Are they just supposed to, I mean, I guess that's the scenario you just went into, but you have to tear everything down and completely build it up, or can you at least salvage something as a starting place for what you're doing?
Right. That's a good question. So what some of the contractors do is they'll say that what we need to do to fix this situation is remove all the sheathing. And the problem with this is that some of that wood could still be good and it doesn't need to be torn off. And also it can be costly to remove and replace um, some of that material. One method that we recommend and what other manufacturers recommend is to, rather than replace everything, just install a 3/8 inch overlay on top of the existing space sheathing. And this method works because it's compliant with section R102.7 of the IRC, and which basically says that you can make alterations or repairs to an existing structure without bringing the entire structure up to code. So you don't have to do work to parts of the house that don't need it. And in this case, we're just putting more material over the existing material. And in doing so, you make the sheathing solid, and then you can install asphalt shingles.
I have a question. So we're talking about going back to the deck. So what if the deck is more or less solid, but it just has like large gaps in between the planks?
Hmm.
It's a good question. This is probably the more common scenario that we get. Let's say a contractor, or roofer goes up there, strips off all the material, and they find planks on the roof, but there's like a half-inch gap in between the boards. And they go back to the adjuster and say, well, we need to resheathe this deck because the gaps are too large. We need a nailable substrate so that it can hold the shingles. Um, this is kind of it's kind of complicated because when you install planks on a roof, you need to have some kind of gap in between the boards. Otherwise, if they're too tightly fit against each other due to the seasonal expansion and contraction that it'll be subject to, it can cause the boards to bow a little bit. And in order to prevent that, you have to have some kind of gap. On the other side, if you have too large of a gap, there is a possibility that you can hammer or fasten a nail in between the crack, in between the seams. There was one engineer who did the math on it, and he found out that on a 1x6 board with 5/8 inch gap between the boards, there is about a 9% chance of any random nail falling between the seams, which is like actually kind of high when you think about it. Like 1 out of every 10 nails is likely to
Yeah.
fall through the seam. And that number goes up as the gap increases. So for a 3/4 inch gap, it's like something like 11% or something. So you don't want the gap to be too big, but you need it to be there. And what we found out looking through some technical bulletins and some material published by the industry, that the consensus seems to be between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch gap between boards. And anything larger than that should be either uh, covered with an overlay in the same situation as with space sheathing. You install 3/8 inch overlay on top, and that'll make it solid and give it a nailable substrate.
So the term solid sheathing refers to the space between the boards and not whether it's a plywood or planks, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So there's a misconception about what materials can be used and what constitutes solid sheathing. And some contractors believe that any kind of planked sheathing is a violation of code when you're trying to use asphalt shingles. And this is just incorrect. The code allows for lumber planks to be used as sheathing. Um, that's covered in section R803.1 of the IRC. Um, and Typically, the code allows for 5/8 inch thick boards, but most manufacturers require 1 inch thick boards. But for some reason, there's this misconception, and people believe that you either have to have plywood or OSB, but you can actually use lumber as well.
It's all about the size of the gap. Is that what we're getting at, Rosen?
Pretty much, yes. If you're going to install asphalt shingles, it has to have a minimal gap between the boards, and that's what makes it solid.
Cool. So, Rosen, I get to ask you another question. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. What can we take away from the scenario?
Oh,
3 things. Asphalt shingles can only be installed on solid sheathing. Removing existing planks is not always necessary to make the sheathing solid. You can install an overlay on top. And solid sheathing can be planks or boards or panels.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosen. And Mike,
yeah?
where can an adjuster go to learn more?
You can talk to Rosen. He's out there available 24/7 for all of your questions.
Okay, not 24/7, not 24/7.
And Sundays and
Oh,
holidays.
I'm right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
If he wants.
And I don't mean to do that to you. It's his first time here, and we're already giving him a hard time. So, of course, you go to our website, and you can pick an area where you can ask a building code question. If you want to research it yourself, there's plenty of cool stuff on the building code hub. But we also have educational stuff. We have some recorded webinars. Our most popular recorded webinar, I think, ever was Asphalt Shingles Top 10 Code Questions. Excellent. Inside the building codes hub, when you look around, there's some cool clickable diagrams on what a residential roof looks like, toolkit, different pieces, parts of it. And you could find some cool coverage research stuff on spade sheeting, even though this thing's supposed to be solid. We learned there's gaps there. So what's that all mean? How big a gap all that puts? It's all out there, Alicia, on our website.
All right. Well, I guess, Mike, you want me to share these links, huh?
I would, that's usually what we ask at this time. Would you be kind enough, Alicia?
I guess so. So, in the show notes, we can share links to the cases that Mike just mentioned. You can find a recap of the key points from this episode today. You'll find links to our social media, and you'll also find information on how to submit your own adjuster story. So, don't forget to subscribe and give us a rating on your favorite, wherever you listen to your podcast.
Right. 5 stars.
5 stars, 10 stars, 11 stars, 20 stars. That's what we all
Whatever
want.
it takes.
And we will see you all next time. Rosen, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Rosen.
Thank you, guys.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies and counsel as appropriate.